Hello and welcome back to Beyond 50. Today, I want to talk about the Ecobee smart thermostat that I installed in February. Issues that I had with it since the installation and how we resolved those, as well as why I'd probably reinstall this again even with those issues. All right. While I have a video that talks about the installation process and why I chose the Ecobee over the Nest, functionally the Nest just wouldn't work with my system. I don't want to get too much into those details because we can go ahead and just watch that video. I do want to give a recap though of what the heating and cooling system that I have here in this house is. So, because it's a little bit relevant to the issues that I had with the Ecobee. So, first of all, I have a heat pump. Heat pumps very much works like an air conditioner or a refrigerator, where it uses a compressor and uses the expansion of fluid into gas to absorb heat and do stuff. It's all technical. I don't know that I fully understand it. Anyway, a heat pump works just like an air conditioner, but it can also work in reverse. And so instead of just cooling down the house when it's hot out, it can run in reverse and it can warm the house when it is cold out. I also have a furnace, and the furnace sits here in this closet, and the furnace acts as central air, or as Jason Lee would say,
no pleasure, no rapture, no exquisite sin greater than central air.
And by central air, it acts as the whole house fan. It takes the heat or the cold from the heat pump and it blows it through the house with a big fan, basically. And that is what central air is. The furnace also has an auxiliary heat system. It will burn propane gas to run heat as well. And why do I have like a heat pump and a propane gas tank? Well, or a propane furnace. The heat pump becomes less efficient at warming the colder it is outside. And so there's not as much heat. When it's below 30 degrees out, there's not a lot of heat in the air for the heat pump to suck out and push back into the house. So this is where the auxiliary heat kicks in and the propane should kick in. My old thermostat, my old Honeywell thermostat had these settings, but I couldn't really access them. So I'll just talk about what the Ecobee settings are. If it is below 30 degrees out, the heat pump will not turn on. It disables the heat pump completely. Also, if it's above 40 degrees, the propane furnace will not kick in for heating. This is really relevant to the issues that happened. There's also a setting in the Ecobee that says whether or not the furnace and the heat pump can run at the same time. I'm not sure if that's the default setting was to allow them to both run at the same time, or if during setup I chose the wrong setting, because maybe I just don't remember. And to me, it seemed like why not let them run at the same time? So now let me get into a little bit into the issues that I had. So I installed the thermostat at the beginning of February, and for the first week we were here. We hadn't left for our Belize trip at that point, and it seemed to work great. That said, temperatures were pretty cold here in the Seattle area. Definitely below 40. Evenings was regularly getting down to around 20 degrees at night at that time. And everything seemed to be working great. The Ecobee was running the furnace, the house was staying warm, everything was good. We leave on vacation, and after about 4 or 5 days in Belize, I got a notice from Ecobee saying that my heat pump had been running for some long amount of time, but my house had decreased in temperature, indicating that there was an issue with the heat pump. Pros and cons of this. One, if I was happy to get the notice, because if you're away on vacation and you get a notice from your heating and cooling system that, hey, your house isn't staying warm enough. You could then prevent something, right? If it got too cold and your pipes freeze and things like that, that could lead to a disaster. So it's good that Ecobee gave me this notice. It was a little difficult because I couldn't really do too much about it considering I was out of the country. My daughter was up here house sitting off and on a little bit. And so the first part of the story is I asked her like, hey, can you just go out and look and tell me if the heat pump's running? She's like, yeah, it's running, it's fine. And at this point, it hadn't really gotten that cold here. Actually, temperatures here in Seattle had raised up quite a bit while we were on vacation, and things were generally warmer. So the house wasn't getting that cold. It had got down to about 60 degrees. It wasn't to the level that I was concerned, even about the cats being uncomfortable, but it was definitely colder than it should have been. Within the mobile app, I was able to do some overrides and say like, hey, just let the furnace run. And so I could occasionally like run the furnace and keep the house at a reasonable temperature, but it was really weird and I wasn't quite sure what was going on. So after a few days of this, my daughter came back and I said, hey, can you check the heat pump again? Like, I don't understand what's going on. And she's like, yeah, it's not running. And I was like, wait, was it running before? She's like, I don't know what a heat pump is. I don't know why I said yes. So the first time she checked it, while the Ecobee thought the heat pump was running and it was providing a signal to the heat pump to say run, the heat pump was not actually running. I had my daughter flip the breaker for the thermostat and that kicked it on and everything seemed to work well for a few days. And so I was like, ooh, that's weird. It had just needed a reset. Right after we left, I had a power outage here. It was planned power outage for some maintenance that PSE was doing. And so I knew there was going to be a power outage. And I thought maybe just as the system came on, it just got into a weird state and that was what had caused that. However, after we returned, the same issue happened again, and I was here, so that was good. I was able to just flip the breaker and reset things, and everything seemed to work again. A couple days later, it happened again, and this is where I started to get concerned. And I was like, "This is weird. I shouldn't have to reset my breaker every time." Or every couple of days, this isn't going to be sustainable. So I reached out to Ecobee support after actually looking on forums and looking online for help, and I really just couldn't find the information that I was looking for to understand what was causing this. There was a couple of posts where people had said some similar things, and it was possibly due to a firmware update. Didn't seem like it was quite the issue I was running into though. The first responses I got from Ecobee support via email were not super helpful. It was kind of yeah, it seems like there's a problem with your system. Good luck, which was pretty unsatisfactory. And I think my response was basically, well, it wasn't happening before I had installed the Ecobee. I guess maybe I install my old thermostat and send this back to you guys. That prompted we could set up a call with a support technician to walk you through things. And so we got that scheduled for the next day. And I got a call from the support technician and she was extremely helpful. The morning that she called, I was actually hitting the issue. So the timing was really good. We were able to test it out really well because the issue was actually manifesting itself. And I could say, hey, the Ecobee thinks the heat pump should be running, but the heat pump isn't actually running. And we could do a lot of verification on that, including connecting some of the wires together to just force the signal to tell the heat pump to run, and it didn't. This kind of, I think, indicated there was something other than the Ecobee that was causing the problem and helped confirm that. And one of the things that she looked at then was all of the settings that I had enabled on the Ecobee. The one setting, which I'd mentioned earlier, was the setting to enable the heat pump and the propane furnace to run at the same time. And that can apparently cause some issues with the furnace. And what it looked like was the furnace was actually, when that would happen, kicking in a safety feature to avoid burning itself out and not running the heat pump at all. And then if I just reset the furnace, that would go away. So she walked me through changing that setting, where to change that setting on the Ecobee to only allow the heat pump or the furnace to run independently. And it's been 2 weeks since we did that, and I haven't had an issue at all. Looking back now at the data that the Ecobee provided, it seems like I was actually only hitting the issue if temperatures were dropping low enough for the furnace to kick in while the heat pump was running. So there really does seem to be what the cause of this was. I just want to say thank you to Ecobee support for helping troubleshoot this and walk through it. I think the Ecobee, honestly, as a smart thermostat, I still would like a little bit more time with it to give, you know, a like super detailed review, but it works really well. The screen is very responsive, as you can see. The touchscreen just works. It's incredibly responsive. I rarely use the Alexa feature to talk to it, because now that it seems to be setting itself, it is very functional and it just works. But I like having the ability to tweak things and change things and set the temperature to exactly the temperature that I want it to be at. The other thing that I like, there's an additional sensor. So there's the main temperature sensor that's there. I have another temperature sensor that I can put anywhere else in the house, and that helps balance out rooms that are too warm or too cold. And I do have a little bit of a heating distribution problem with this house. And so the bedroom's a little too cold, my office is a little too warm. And this little sensor, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly the best way to use it, but it helps balance things out. By putting that sensor in the bedroom where it's usually a little too cold, the Ecobee knows to run the furnace a little bit longer and heat up the house a little bit longer and get a little bit better average on the heat than just what it says there on the sensor on the wall, which would say, hey, it's 71 degrees, and that's exactly where Matt wants it. Meanwhile, it's 65 in the bedroom and it shuts off. By having that digital sensor, it can let it run a little bit longer, and the bedroom heats up a little bit. I'm not sure what would happen if I had a third sensor that I installed in the office, which is again a little too warm, and so heat goes into the office and can get stuck there. That might average things back out, and the Ecobee might just go back to basically what it was doing before. So I think I've got a little bit of heat balance work that I need to do to fix some of the issues in this house, but having the ability to have an additional sensor that just connects in seems to work really well. And that came with this Ecobee package that I bought. It wasn't something I had to add on, and it's a nice additional feature. One thing I have noticed though is I probably don't want it sitting next to the window, because when it's by the window, it's a little too cold, and then the furnace is running excessive, or the heat pump is running excessively to try and keep the house warm. So overall, I'm very happy with the Ecobee. I'm definitely keeping it. It is now working. I also did test it out to make sure that it actually cools. And so I have one other source of heat in here, which is a gas fireplace there, which is mostly decorative, but it's kind of nice if you're sitting here watching TV to turn on the fireplace and sit by the fire. But it'll also raise the temperature way up in here because it's completely disconnected from the rest of the heating and cooling system. And so, you know, you get the heat nice and hot in here, and I was able to then say like, hey, does the air conditioning kick in? You don't want to be doing that, running gas fireplace and air conditioning at the same time normally, but it was a good way to just verify that everything was actually working with a thermostat setup, so that when summer starts, we're not going to be sweating in here. So that's it. So far, I'm happy with this Ecobee. I would purchase it again. And so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you maybe learned something, and maybe this will help you make a decision on whether or not to install your own smart thermostat. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you back for more reviews or travel or DIY stuff here sometime in the future.